And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore. We never set out. We're your hosts, MD and CD. Today, it's week 12. Guys, we got like 3 weeks left of like good college football games and regular season, and then we get to the playoffs and the postseason and conference championships and all that good stuff. So we got to enjoy it while we can. We got 8 games for you guys. We got some really good stuff. We got Maction. We got some Mountain West. We want to talk about a conference getting nuts. That conference is getting nuts right now. Got a lot of SEC here, ACC. We got some Big 12. We're looking at everything here, right? So if you're doing and you enjoy college football just like us, want to hear more of us, just think about subscribing. If you watch this video, like the content, give us a like. We would appreciate that a lot. Of course, by the time some of you may be watching this, we might be at 900 subscribers. So thank you all so much for that support. It's been awesome. Road to 1,000. Let's get it before the end of the year. And you guys can help with that just by simply subscribing. So we appreciate y'all. And CD. I mean, this is like, we're not talking about major top 5 matchups here this week, but like in terms of the slate of games that we are covering, like these are like radically competitive games.
I mean, just massively impactful games within conferences. You got, the top 2 teams in the CUSA. You got the top 2 teams in the Mountain West. You've got 2 of the top teams in the ACC. We're previewing 2 of the top teams in the MAC as well. And, of course, Georgia, Texas, and some other good games as well. A lot of good stuff going on there this week. Obviously, of course, the playoff rankings coming out on Tuesday. But while y'all are wasting your time watching the playoff rankings, I'll be watching the MAC. We will be watching the MAC. We've got, of course, the battle of the wagon wheel there. Akron and Kent, just about 10 miles from each other, playing over there in Akron. A couple of teams looking for bowl eligibility, or at least 6 wins. I know Akron can't go to a bowl game because of their APR scores. But then, of course, Ohio and Western Michigan in a dogfight for the MAC, looking to kind of put even more separation between them and the field in a huge spot here. So a lot of fun this week. Starting early, of course, it's November. So we got Tuesday night, Wednesday night action, Thursday night, another game we'll talk about, Troy and Old Dominion. And, of course, a couple, honestly, fun matchups on Friday as well, and Saturday it'll continue throughout. So what a week in college football. Appreciate you guys for joining us. Can't wait to get into it.
Let's head over to Waldo Stadium in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Well, Western Michigan's hosting Ohio. All right, we're looking at 2 teams, big dogs in the MAC right now on Maction. Okay, and winner of this, you mentioned, going to be putting themselves in a very good position to potentially be making the MAC championship here in a couple weeks. The spread reflects that this is a competitive game. The spread reflects that these are 2 very good teams. Ohio, Western Michigan. Western Michigan catching 1.5 points here. CD, you're a resident MAC guy, so I look. I got a feeling I know where you're going to go with this, but take us there.
Yeah, Ohio coming off a huge, hard-fought, intense, great atmosphere of a game at the Battle of the Bricks against Miami just a week ago from watching this here. Western Michigan's off a bye prior to that, but just 10 days ago, they were playing Miami as well. So you have common opponents there. Ohio gets the win. Western Michigan loses. It'll be interesting to see whose style of play is dictated here. What I mean by that is like Ohio in the conference of the MAC, they are your elite offensive team. They are fantastic in all phases of the game. The only concern maybe is pass protection. But what Parker Navarro does with the sack avoidance in terms of breaking tackles, not necessarily his pocket presence, his breaking tackles. And of course, the weapons, Rodney Harris and Chase Hendricks doing their things for OU, plus C.A. Bangura. Fantastic running back in the MAC. They're really, really dominant. On the other side, Western Michigan, they get after you defensively. They are top 2, right? They are second in the conference in passing, total, rushing, scoring, defense, all that kind of stuff. Like, they are really, really solid. And of course, they got the defensive end, all MAC guy, Nadame Tucker's got 9.5 sacks on the year, 3 forced fumbles. That could be a huge game changer there, getting after Navarro getting him down to the ground, which teams have struggled to do. My question for Western Michigan is, do you have faith in them to move the football consistently? And if they can't move the ball on the ground, which Ohio is better at stop and run than they are to pass, if you can't get to them on the ground, do you trust Brock Lowry and those receivers to move the ball against Ohio? Because you're probably going to have to put up some points here. You won't have to score 30, but it's probably going to be closer in the 20s than it is going to be in the teens. So you're going to need to move the football. Do you have faith in them doing that? I lean no here. What about you?
I like Western Michigan in this spot. I do. And a lot of it more so has to do with the dynamic of this game. All right. Western Michigan at home has been incredible. Like, they've actually been incredible. Their only loss came in overtime to a what? A North Texas team that is, by the way, plus 200 to make the college football playoffs. They have better odds to make the college football playoffs than Utah, BYU, USC, Duke. Right now is like the favorite to win the ACC. Like, that's a very good football team. All right. And they found a way to put up points on them as well. Enough, I should say. I don't think you have to score. You don't have to score 30 points against this Ohio team. Ohio in themselves, I don't think has necessarily been a great road team. All right. I love Parker Navarro. I think Saya Bangura is phenomenal in that color. All right. Get him out of the maroon. All right. Get him in that Ohio green. Come on. And yeah, you talked about Harris, Hendricks. I mean, like, incredible players for Ohio. But I look at this Western Michigan team and offensively, like you asked, like, can they do enough? I think you absolutely can. I think this Ohio defense is okay. All right. I think in terms of like within the MAC conference, I don't think it's a bottom half defense by any stretch of the imagination. But it's not Loctite enough to, just expect to not be a little bit leaky on the road like they have been in some of these big spots. I mean, you think about like games that they had to go to on the road. Ball State, the offense did not show up. Weird stuff happens. Mikey Rimovich gets a win there in the MAC. You go on the road to Eastern Michigan. That was a bit of a dicey game. You went on the road to Rutgers against a really good, like a team that's better than you. And I thought you actually played well and could have won that game, but defense a little bit leaky there in that game. I just think that Ohio is a much better team at home than on the road, and Western Michigan is a very much better team at home than on the road. That dynamic is huge, and against two teams that, of course, want to play opposite styles, the team that's bringing the offense on the road, I don't know if I trust that enough, even though I love Brian Smith, phenomenal coach. You and I both thought that was a great hire. I just feel like that there's if this was flipped, right, and you're bringing the defense, all right, on the road, I'd feel a little bit better about that. But I'm not sure that the offense is going to travel the way that Ohio wants it to. I think Western Michigan is still a really good football team. I don't think people are talking enough about them. Can't wait for people to start talking about them as a potential MAC team here. I think they get the win in this spot. I really do.
Yeah, if you're looking at like how to replicate success for Western Michigan in this spot here, you go back just a month or so against Toledo in the opening weekend of the MAC, and they get a win there 14-13 at home, and they held a very good offense, and Tucker Gleason struggled to throw the football. 15-30 for 89 yards and 2 interceptions. They held Junior Vanderos, one of the best wide receivers in the MAC, to 3 yards on 4 catches. Of course, Chip Trinum had his, but we expect Vancouver to have that as well. So, listen, I mean, it's there. There's proof in the pudding there, of course, with this Western Michigan defense. But Miami just 10 days ago had over 400 yards of offense. Daquan Finn had 260. The team had 150 on the ground. I see a very similar kind of game here that Ohio comes out, and they come out on top here. They thrived on the big plays against Miami. I think they replicate that a little bit. I think Brian Smith gets them going and ready to go up against Lance Taylor's damn good coach for Western Michigan. These two very good coaches there. Of course, Brian Smith a little bit more on the green end. I know, no pun intended right there for the Bobcats, but a little bit more newer to the MAC. But of course, it's had a great year in year one. It's Tuesday night action. It's hard to go against the road team here, or it's hard to go with the road team here especially two of the top teams in the MAC here. But listen, I like Ohio here.
Notre Dame is going to Pitt, man, and of course, now no ACC, you know, uh, ramifications of this game, but massive ramifications for Notre Dame if they lose. Right, Pitt is in the driver's seat in the ACC. Like they just got to win those two games, and then they got a shot here to make the college football playoffs in what could be them playing in the ACC championship game, especially with Virginia losing. Notre Dame here, I mean, boy, they've been playing good football. How good is CJ Carr, man? Like, I don't want to say like that they could have won the national championship last year because I think Riley Leonard like actually did
Different teams.
remarkable things down the stretch and literally willed his team to win football games. So I don't want to make the comparison like, oh, if they had CJ Carr playing like this last year, then they could have won the national championship. But he looks like a national championship quarterback to me.
Absolutely. No, I think it's hard to it's apples and oranges. I think that team, that style is different for Notre Dame. Defense, running the football, and just
Sure.
gritting out wins, special teams, all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit more flashy here. They bring in the wide receivers. They're having success. Faison, Fields, Pauling, of course, with Love, and Price do out of the backfield, and of course the talent of CJ Carr. Listen though, Mason Heischel, Pitt's got a quarterback too, man. And if you have not been paying attention to college football, not been paying attention to Pitt football, you probably don't know that like this guy's a true freshman here who has since he has been inserted in the lineup has changed the direction of this season for the Pitt Panthers. I kind of wrote as a joke here, like who's the better quarterback? I mean, it's definitely Carr, but I think Heischel and the notability and like the fame and spotlight he will get this week with game day coming. Of course, the ABC game at noon. Like he will get a lot more names and eyes on him, which is fun and good for college football for sure. He does take a lot of sacks. That's something that Notre Dame and Marcus Raymond will look to exploit, no doubt. But he makes plays, man. He really does. I'm so happy for him and for Pitt that it's at home. They don't have to go on the road for the young quarterback. Um, Here's what I will say about it, though, and I don't want to take away from anything that Pitt has done or that this quarterback Heischel has done as well. But the teams he has played, he's played 5 games, right, in ACC play here. Boston College, Florida State, Syracuse, North Carolina State, Stanford, right? Not necessarily world beaters whatsoever, not at all, right? Boston College, Syracuse, NC State, Stanford, all 4 of those teams have passed defenses ranked outside of the top 120 in yards given up per game. That is terrible. And Florida State's actually at 50th. But, Heischel was even 21 for 29, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So he did a very solid game, couple of interceptions that, set him back. But the other thing is I brought those sacks. He had 5 sacks against Florida State and 7 against Syracuse. So against Florida State, right, 2 interceptions, 5 sacks. That's not where he can be against Notre Dame if he wants to
No.
give and put themselves in a chance. Now, the good thing about Notre Dame, and if you're Pitt, is Notre Dame is very good defensive against the run, statistically, right? 15th, top 15 in the country in rush defense, but they are 89th in passing defense, giving up about 230 yards a game, which is, there's proof of the pudding there. Now, as you brought up a little bit earlier, we were off air talking about it. That is a little inflated against the teams they have played against, right? You think USC, Miami, Texas A&M, 3 of the better passing offenses, wide receiver rooms, quarterbacks, offense coordinator kind of trios, in college football, especially with the offensive lines that Miami and A&M have and the way the USC's is also playing as well. It's not necessarily what Pitt's bringing to the table, but boy, oh boy, man. Legacy game, legacy opportunity here for the quarterback out of Pitt.
So Pitt has not necessarily run the ball super effectively. I mean, they got a tandem of running backs that they like there, but like they in these 5 games that they've won with Mason Heinschel, they've leaned heavily on him, and I don't know what the game plan is there. I don't know if it's just like that's what they feel like is their best opportunity to win games. Obviously, they haven't run the ball very effectively, but some of their rushing stats, like the basic metrics, you're like it isn't necessarily including the sacks, which have been, as you mentioned, numerous. But like, is this a situation where the play style of Pitt offensively could potentially hurt them? In this, like not limiting the possessions, like not slowing down the game, like keeping your defense off the field. Like if you stack a couple 3-and-outs in a row,
Yeah.
in the way that you play with Mason Heichel, like this could get out of hand in a hurry. I know your run defense has been spectacular this year, and you anticipate as a Pitt fan, at least showing some fight against Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price in that backfield. However, I will tell you that teams have not really had success. Teams have slowed them down, but at the end of the day, those two are going to combine for at least 160 yards and probably 2 touchdowns. So what do you have to do if you're Pitt? Like, is this play style conducive to winning football this week?
Well, you're hoping that Desmond Reed comes back healthy. He has been in and out of lineup. I think he gives you a different kind of dimension. You talk about leaning more on Heinzel. Part of that is in due to Reed not being there in your backfield. Now, Ja'Carrion Turner has been pretty darn good as well. Not going to discount him whatsoever. But Desmond Reed, I think, gives you a different dynamic back there in that backfield that gives Cade Bell, who's my next point, Cade Bell has to be in his bag. That's the offense coordinator for Pittsburgh. We've talked about him, I think, a good amount of times he's passed year and a half since he got hired last season for Pittsburgh, and the way he's kind of changed the offense there and how terrible it was after Kenny Pickett. And then, he's slowly starting to bring life back into this offense. It's big on him. You talk about stacking 3-and-outs. You talk about putting yourself in bad negative play strips, not where you want to be against a team that can run the ball extremely well, that can make plays deep down in the passing fields, especially if they are in second and short, right? And then also an opportunistic defense, a defense with 16 interceptions. So that same passing defense that's given up, 230 yards per game through the air is also third in the nation in 16 interceptions. There's athletes back there. No doubt there's freaks on the defensive line, Byron Young and others, to get to the quarterback. So that's not where you want to be. You talk about like these opening drives, the opening strip, first 10, 15 plays that Cade Bell is going to have ready for Heinzel are going to be huge and huge. And Notre Dame, right? They're a team that has to come out there and punch you in the mouth, right? You cannot give Pitt and the crowd that's going to be there and the atmosphere and everything, like you cannot give this team confidence because we know, like, and I know you talk about, if you talk to sports psychologists and whatever, right? They don't believe in momentum. Damn it, though, momentum absolutely exists in college football. You cannot tell me otherwise. And this is a spot here where momentum can drastically change the game in either direction. Notre Dame comes out firing. You could see it snowballing. And Notre Dame looking to make a statement. They are not in the playoffs right now. Like, they are not a control your own destiny. And we've said that since week 3, when they lost to A&M, right? They have had to make a statement after statement after statement. And they've done a really good job of that so far. This is huge that Pitt, it's going to be national or college game day. So, of course, the national spotlight, a ranked team against Pitt on the road. All spots here for Marcus Freeman's team to get a massive signature win for you in November for the committee to do that for you, right? To put you in. So this is huge here.
Yeah, and like when we were looking down the schedule, I mean, even just a couple weeks back, right before Mason Heichel, went on this run of 5 games here, we were talking like, okay, like you got to beat USC. Like that's the game, and you got to look good, and you got to look good in every other game because you don't have a lot of teams left on your resume to bolster that resume. But here we are. It's just a couple weeks later, and like you said, Pitt ranked, college game day, national spotlight. So that ended up working out pretty good for Notre Dame there. With that being said, I'll take them minus 11.5. That's what we'll pick it at today. I think they cover. I think they win. And I think that Mason Heinzel kind of gets introduced to that level of college football, despite being a fantastic player. And I think Cade Bell is a great offensive coordinator. I think they got some very talented players there. Like we talked about those running backs and receivers there. I mean, Johnson, Williams, the most common names for wide receivers, these days. But I really like this football team, and I think they can absolutely go on to win the ACC. I just don't think that they will win or cover in this one today.
Yeah, I think was Pat Narduzzi saying something about that, right? Like they're still very much alive, in the ACC hunt here because if you remember, right, their loss out of conference in the backyard brawl, of course, how could you forget Pitt fans, right, was to West Virginia, not a conference game. Louisville early in the season with another quarterback, right? So all those things leading you to a spot where, of course, if you win this game here, you put yourself in an at-large conversation, right? But you lose this game, everything is still right in front of you for Narduzzi and the Panthers. I genuinely think Notre Dame is a top 6 college football team in the country. I know they're ranked at 10 and 2 losses, but they are playing out of their mind, and they have been for a while. Their only loss, of course, Miami week 1 with CJ Carr, first start on the road, and then you to the best loss in the country, maybe, right, with what A&M did. And even that game, too, you can make an argument that Notre Dame was right there with a chance to win, right? And maybe you did win with the holding call that wasn't called. I'm not going to go into that, of course, but listen, I think Notre Dame's damn good here. I think Pitt, you said it's a good football team, but I think Notre Dame shows up and they make a statement here. I'll take them in the points, of course. Yeah, give me the Fighting Irish.
Oklahoma's going to Tuscaloosa. There's a lot of players and coaches on this Alabama team that remember what happened last year. Kind of I'll call it, I guess, that sort of nail in the coffin, for like that resume that didn't get you into the college football playoffs. An Oklahoma team at home dominated you physically. All right. Will that be the case this year? This Alabama team is more talented from top to bottom. There have been some instances where they've gotten, out physicaled. Week 1 was a weird game. Obviously, they get out physicaled, but then like the weather starts turning and it's like tough to come back in that kind of weather. But Ty Simpson's been playing phenomenal football. You got some change in the secondary that seems to be working out pretty well for you. You got some really nice weapons at receiver. They're spreading the ball out. They're running the football sometimes. I mean, last time they kind of gave up on Jam Miller. I don't know what the deal was there. I am very interested in this football game. John Mateer, obviously, since the surgery, hasn't been playing perfect football, but what better time than now, right? Back against the wall. I mean, this is a real opportunity here for Oklahoma to have another statement win. I mean, this is one of the toughest schedules in the entire country that you're looking at. Do you start looking at this Oklahoma resume, CD? And do you start, especially if you win this game, do you start looking at some of the other teams in college football and start going, all right, well, can we get in with 2 wins, 3 wins? I think you can absolutely get in with 2 wins, but what are the conversations that are being had if you win this game?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, you talk about the schedule. We talked about this back. It seems like every time you talk about Oklahoma, you have to bring up the schedule at some point, especially early in the season and back in the offseason. We looked at this murderer's row down here at the end of October and in November with Ole Miss at Tennessee, at Alabama, and you finish the season off with Missouri and LSU. All of a sudden, it looks a little bit less daunting with Missouri onto a backup quarterback and with LSU, of course, firing their head coach and everything that's gone wrong for the Tigers in that season. So you win here, and all of a sudden, you're going to be favored at home, probably by 5 points, 6 points at least, against these teams that you're going to be playing against. Not guaranteed wins, not by a long shot, especially with the style of play that Oklahoma has and some of the inconsistencies on offense. But this is massive. It is not getting the attention it deserves. I think everyone kind of expects, Oklahoma, that's right, they lost to Texas and Ole Miss. They're kind of done. I think people wrote them off because of the schedule, and they're like, well, they're not going to sweep the rest of the way, so it doesn't even matter about talking about them. Let's just move on. But they absolutely have a chance to win this football game. Like, all of a sudden, you got a running back in Xavier Robinson that's putting in work for you, which is massive. John Mateer, Alpha bye week, as healthy as he has been probably in months, which is huge. Hoping that wide receiver core getting more and more healthy to try to go after a really good defense in Alabama, especially in that secondary. We know this Oklahoma defense is damn good on all 3 levels, more so in that front 7. What does worry me, I think, is they have been exposed at times in the secondary. Now, Joey Aguilar had 400 yards against them. A lot of that was late, too, so I can't really count that. But they couldn't run the ball, right, Tennessee. And Aguilar had 2 interceptions. So Oklahoma shut down the run, and they were opportunistic. And that caused them to put themselves in a spot to win this football game. Ty Simpson looking for a Heisman moment. Love to see. You got Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, Brooks. 17 is a really good football player for Alabama. He's the next in the line of elite wide receivers coming out of there. He's got different kind of bursts. I don't know what to expect from them running the football. I don't expect them to run the football at home against Oklahoma. It should be a great game here. I like Alabama in the spot, and I don't love it at all. I'll tell you that. Now, it makes me think you talked about a lot of the staff and those players that remember last year, the beating you got. You talked about the nail in the coffin. It feels like this season has been a little bit of that like revenge tour from Alabama. I think of the meme from the Grim Reaper going from door to door to door, and I picture Vanderbilt's logo, I picture Tennessee's logo, and I picture Oklahoma's logo on there from last year after what all those teams did to them in games that Bama should have won, right? That they were favored in on the road, and they just didn't get it done. To me, they got the revenge against Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt, got the revenge in the third Saturday of October, and here they will again against Oklahoma, newcomers in the SEC, put a nail in their coffin in their season and ending their playoff hopes here, probably, assuming chaos doesn't happen. But I have a hard time believing Oklahoma at 9-3 with your best win being at Tennessee. Don't know if that gets you in, but here we are. Give me the Tide.
I think Alabama's going to win this game, but I think Oklahoma keeps it close. All right, we'll pick this at 6.5. I think Oklahoma covers, but I think Bama wins here. I worry, right? As great of an offensive coordinator, I think Ryan Grubb is as great of an offensive mind. I think Kalen DeBoer is, as well as Ty Simpson is playing right now. Like Brent Venables, like in this defense, have been. I know you talked about the secondary being susceptible, particularly in recent weeks, but it is like they can be an offense's nightmare. They really can be. They have talent all over the place, a great coaching staff. And the problem is too, like if you don't get rolling with Ty Simpson early, the beautiful thing is that, this team is obviously conducive to playing from behind, but like what do you do like when you get up? Right? I think Alabama can run the ball. I know that they didn't have success with that at all against LSU. I know for a fact that they did not have a lot of success against South Carolina with that. I think some of it's, part of that's abandoning the run game. Some of that's your run game getting shut down. I worry, I guess, a little bit their ability to run the ball if they're up in this game. But the fact that it's in Tuscaloosa, I think, gives them a little bit of an edge right there. And Ty Simpson is just an incredible football player. And obviously John Mateer is a really good quarterback as well. Like that is a guy that can go into your crib and absolutely mess some stuff up. And think about Alabama too, like I don't think that Auburn game is necessarily a layup, as it really never is. I mean, of course,
No,
you're going to
especially the
Jordan
interim
Hare.
coach. Yeah, no, thank you.
Interim coach at Jordan Hare. I mean, now you
The
got
quarterback.
Ashton
They found a
Daniels.
quarterback. Oh, and guess what?
Like,
The best wide receiver on the field. Now cover your ears here, Alabama. It's gonna be on Auburn. So
yeah. So this is a big game for both these teams. They're going to be fighting tooth and nail for sure. I don't love picking Bama to win, Oklahoma to cover, because it requires a very thin margin of error there. But Alabama was my national championship pick preseason. I'm going to stick with them, but I do think Oklahoma keeps it close.
yeah, one thing I will say is you brought up Brent Venables. They're off a bye too, and he is a guy that there are a few coordinators or play callers, offensive or defensive, whatever you want to call them, that do scare me coming off a bye, and he's absolutely one of them. In addition to, I talked about Mateer getting healthier. If you tell me you get 100% Mateer, like, yeah, this all of a sudden, I think that line shrinks a little bit, and I think that's a really, really nerve-wracking spot to be if you're Alabama, because we have seen quarterbacks make a name for themselves, beating Alabama, right? How many? And John Mateer would be a very good quarterback. There's been much worse quarterbacks do things to Alabama. Now it's of
The
course different
Steven
era, different coaching
Garcias,
staff. Yeah. I mean,
the Bo
it's just
Wallaces, the Chad
yeah.
Kellys.
Poe
Although
Wallace,
Chad
Chad.
Kelly had some dog in him.
He did, but come on. Yeah, listen. It's a really intriguing game. I think it's not getting enough attention nationally that it probably should. And the unfortunate spot is, I think everyone expects Oklahoma to lose, and they lose. They're just going to write them out and write them off in college football playoff talks. But the reality is, it's a huge year for Venables, and I think it's still been a success. I think it still has been a success, especially if you finish 9-3 in whatever order you go. I want to ask you this here. Now, of course, you can't really just predict it because there's a lot of other variables that happen in here. But what happens if you beat Alabama and you split the last two games against Missouri and or LSU? And I think it would probably have to be Missouri as opposed to LSU because you can't lose your last game. And I think it would be harder. But let's say you go Alabama win, Missouri close loss, LSU win. Would they have an
I
argument? I'm not saying would they be in or not. Would they have an argument for the playoffs?
I
One of the
think they
best
could have
wins
an
in the
argument.
country.
I think, yeah, I think the argument is there. You have one of the best wins in the country. In the SEC, you always talk about good losses, right? You don't really have a bad loss there. Although Missouri's not a great looking loss after what we saw from Matt Zollers, just this past week.
Yeah.
LSU, of course, like that would be a better loss, but not even though, because like
The name,
I
the
don't
name, the
think
name carries weight though. Missouri probably beats LSU to. Ooh,
I don't know, but I
yeah.
think LSU wins that football
Zollers,
game.
yeah, with
Yeah,
Van
the
Buren
Zollers
going
is
out
leaving a
there.
bad taste in my mouth. Now, granted, Mike Elko had a week to prepare for true freshman quarterback in his first start, so that definitely had something to do with it for sure. But Matt Zollers, there was a stretch where he was like, he had completed 3 passes like in that first quarter, and then like didn't complete one for like the rest of the half. It was like ridiculous. Like he was not good. He was not good. But I don't think they get into the playoffs. And honestly, I don't think there even should be an argument for them to get into the playoffs. I get that there will be, and I can see the argument, and I can see the Oklahoma fans, you know, start rambling off like Michigan, you know, uh, Tennessee, Alabama. Those are all great wins. I think you need to win more to deserve a spot in the college football playoffs. I really do. We are gonna stay in the SEC. We're gonna move to Georgia, hosting Texas. Massive game. Massive game. Texas is in wounded animal mode. They just like they look like a pretty good football team. Ever since that fourth quarter against Mississippi State, this Texas football team has completely flipped the switch. Right? There are still some of their game where I'm like, could we be getting a little bit more here? Could we be getting a little bit more here? Yeah, absolutely. I think the Oklahoma game was a little bit weird. You didn't see John Mateer at his best. You saw Texas just kind of dominate. That was a weird game, but I really do think that like watching Texas in that first half of the Vanderbilt game and then that second half in the Mississippi State game, and I'm like, that is a really good football team. That is 80% to 90% of what we were promised here at the beginning of the season. Now, if you can unlock a little bit more of that, boy, if you go here and win on the road in Athens against a top 5 Georgia team that is also playing really good football right now, not to mention, would say that they're surging right now. You start to have very interesting conversations about Texas's possible chances of making, maybe not the SEC championship, depending on how other teams do, but or absolutely making the SEC championship, or just like making the college football playoffs and being a serious problem, potentially only having 2 losses.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge game. Of course. Steve Sarkisian, Kirby Smart, headliner coaching there. Arch Manning, Gunnar Stockton, two massive brands of college football. This game I think was circled as like the game of the week. I think back in the summer when the schedules came out. So it still means a ton here. I know it's game day is not here. I know blah blah blah, but this is still a huge spot here. Unfortunately, I don't think it's an elimination game for Georgia. Now they still have to play Georgia Tech, so like their margin of error all of a sudden goes out the window for sure if you lose this game. And of course, it's revenge here for Texas. Not only did Georgia go into your place, right, and almost I'll say they embarrassed you last year, right, in DKR, and then to follow it up, of course, getting the win in the SEC championship game there in Atlanta. So here we are back in Athens a year later. Oh, Arch and Gunner, man. I will say for all the hate that Arch got, he's been playing a lot better as of recent. Now I think this Georgia defense is going to be one of the better defenses he's seen since you know since Oklahoma. Right? It's been a while since Texas seen someone like this. Now I think Georgia's defense is not quite the standard that we've seen them in the past, of course, but they're still really talented and really well coached. And also, too, Gunner Stockton, man. Gunner freaking Stockton. You talk about Georgia peaking. Gunner Stockton is peaking right now. Nate Frazier, Chauncey Bowens, couple guys running the ball extremely well. You talk about a team in Georgia, if they're running the football with the weapons they have on the outside, the catch and after run. How about Noah Thomas? How about Noah Thomas making his name known down there, in Stark Vegas just last weekend? Huge, huge revelation for this offense. If he can be your big bodied receiver with Delp in the inside there, of course, with Branch, Humphreys, Bell, some big play guys on the edge. It's a lot of fun, man. This is a lot of fun. This will be the most talented collection of players on any field across the country, right, on Saturday. Yeah. I don't know, man. I love Georgia in the spot. I will say it right now. I love Georgia in the spot. I think I texted you a couple weeks ago when Texas was playing Vanderbilt. I was like, thank goodness they won so I can hammer the shit out of Georgia when they play, man. I don't see it with Texas. I understand that potential is there. I think Georgia is going to flex their muscles once again in this little mini rivalry here with Texas and Georgia. Give me the dogs. -6 is what we're picking it at. You can get it at -5.5, which I will absolutely be getting it. So, yeah, give me the dogs there at home, making a statement.
Georgia, some key injuries. Lawson Lucky not going to be playing. Jordan Hall obviously announced out for the season. Offensively, though, like you talked about it, like Noah Thomas has been an afterthought this year until recent weeks, catching a touchdown in I believe each of his last 2 games. That's nuts. That's just nuts that he's just an afterthought, right? He was a primary guy, it was a priority portal get for Georgia and probably for a lot of teams in college football. I want to say that I'm with you. Here's a concern, though. Georgia giving up explosive plays, Texas generating explosive plays. I wouldn't call Texas's offense necessarily feast or famine, but there's definitely a sense of relying on the explosive plays sometimes when you've seen them play in certain games. Could that be a case here? If Georgia prevents the explosive plays and they do that thing where, we're going to make Arch Manning make the mistakes that he makes in these games, in these big moments, in these big spots, then yeah, absolutely Georgia's going to walk in there and blow them out. You also look at some of these secondary metrics for Texas. You kind of have to factor in the injury factor, like what Texas has been dealing with. Like that, there have been a significant amount of injuries that Texas has had to deal with this year on the offensive line. You're looking at especially in the secondary. I mean, still dealing with it. I think the injuries and the fact that, this offense is not exactly what it needs to be, probably to be going on the road and winning a football game in Athens. I'm with you here. I'll lay it with Georgia. I won't feel great about it, though, because until Texas is out of the playoffs, I will not be counting them out. I will not be. I think if they lose this game, I think that they should be out. People will try to make that argument that they could probably get in with 9 wins if they win out and have some really. They would have, the best win in the country if they were to win out, and also the best loss in the country. Actually, probably the best 2 losses in the country and the best win. So it gets a little bit interesting and dicey though when you lose to a Florida team that fired their head coach and may not even make a bowl game. It's not a great look. So Alabama experienced that last year. I don't think it would go in Texas's favor. But boy, so if Georgia wins this game, say they blow Texas out. Earlier this season, we talked seeding. We were like, at least I said, like probably verbatim, like I don't see this Georgia team winning a national championship. If they go in here and just absolutely blow the doors off of Texas, and Gunnar Stockton looks the way that he's looked these last couple weeks, not that they should be your national title favorite, but would they be your SEC favorite? You think?
Well, I think even still with the way the standings are, like they still have a long path to get to that to get to Atlanta. I think once you're in the playoffs, for sure. I mean, I think Georgia, they probably vault themselves into the tier one conversations that Oregon or that Ohio State, excuse me, Indiana, A&M, and Alabama have been in. It seems like the past couple of weeks they've kind of separated themselves from the field. Georgia absolutely is knocking on the door right there. I think even with a close win, you could win by 4 against this Texas team. That wouldn't change my viewpoints on what I think this team can accomplish moving forward for Georgia. No, and not at all. And I think it would be a massive statement. I think the College Football Playoff Committee would have to be a little bit reactionary in that and potentially move them up or down a slot. It would be hard to move them ahead of Alabama because Alabama literally beat them in Athens, and then you can't
Oh
really
yeah,
move down an undefeated A&M team. You can't move down an undefeated Indiana or Ohio State. So maybe not going to be necessarily in that, but in terms of that gap and what you see, for sure, especially if one of those teams were to slip up, they find their way in Atlanta. Could be very, very fun. Getting back to the game here, I wanted to say one more thing with Texas's offense. Man, you talked about them being a little feast or famine. I love that because I don't think they're not really explosive, but they are not consistent enough to be like ground to pound you and get you through it. Georgia's linebackers are so athletic and so good. I can't tell you how many times I watched Texas last season, especially, but also this season too, where they are playing teams and they're like running the ball well, for their standards. And like you have linebackers taking terrible angles, linebackers not athletic enough to get to the edge there, or to cut off like a 2-yard gain and it turns into a 7-yard gain, right? Things like that. Georgia's linebackers can do it. Ohio State's linebackers did it, right? Those are the kind of things here in the spot that I look for Georgia and why I give them a lot of spots to do that. They also shut down a really good offense rushing attack, right, in Ole Miss and kind of forced Chambliss to do his thing, and he wasn't efficient in that, right? And that was also at home for Georgia. I don't think Texas has the kind of offense of talent nor like production that Ole Miss has. So I like Georgia
which is
here.
crazy because beginning of the season, you might not have been saying that.
Especially with Trinidad Chambliss. And let's say, yeah, Austin Simmons has not been the guy so far. And here's Texas with probably spent, probably about $5 million more than Ole Miss. I'm just throwing that number out there. I don't know for sure. But something crazy like that, yeah, But I will say I was impressed with Texas last weekend, or it was really 2 weekends ago against Vanderbilt, right, on the road, top 10 win, or at home against top 10 team. I will say, too, with Texas, we gave them a lot of flack last season and this season, too, for their schedule, especially within the SEC, not being very difficult. Now, I think you throw in Ohio State on the road. Like, Texas actually, if you look at it, right, they have one of the tougher schedules in the country. I think at 9-3, they are probably one of the only teams in the country that puts themselves in an opportunity to be in the playoff considerations. They would need a lot more stuff to happen up ahead of them for them to be even put in that spot. You're talking about a 1-bid league for the Big 12, a 1-bid league for the ACC, and probably some chaos there with Vanderbilt and Tennessee and whatever else would need to happen to get the numbers right for Texas to be slotted in there. The other thing too is like they will have played by the end of the season 5 teams in the top 10 at the time they were playing them. Now, I don't think any of us really believe Vanderbilt nor Oklahoma, especially at the time they were playing John Mateer and his injury, for them to be top 10 football teams. But I think that's part of it where it's like, yeah, like they lost. They got punished for scheduling Ohio State. Now, if they didn't schedule Ohio State, they're sitting here. They're a 8-1 football team here that has not looked impressive. I'll give you that. Has not looked impressive. But they're 8-1 here. Like Texas is ranked 6th in the country right now. And this is 5 versus 6 here, and the loser is not out of the playoffs. The loser is still in the playoffs, very much so. So, it is what it is. But listen, like you lost, man, and this could be your third one here. So this is a huge spot for Texas.
Boise State is traveling to Snapdragon Stadium. It's a bummer that San Diego State lost to Hawaii this past weekend, because it would mean that this game, well, actually, it probably means that this game means even more. But yeah, that Hawaii team all of a sudden, a little bit scary over there on the island. But San Diego State, aside from the Hawaii game, been playing really good football all year. Sean Lewis got those boys buzzing. Defense is absolutely shown out. I'm going to say a bunch of good things about San Diego State, but then you just have to be like, well, aside from the Hawaii game.
Hawaii game.
Boise State's coming off of kind of a disaster class against Fresno State. I mean, you're playing a game without your quarterback, and your quarterback is a major difference maker in this case. And obviously, you didn't have Chris Marshall either. So Boise State is still a really good football team. Question is, will Maddox Madsen be healthy? All right. In San Diego State's case, can Denegal come back? Can they just play better than they did last week? You're going to be at home this week. That's a big deal. Make Boise State travel after you just traveled way out there to the island. Spread's only 2.5 here, and I think that is a very good number, because I think that these teams are pretty neck and neck, and it is going to be an ultra competitive affair.
Without a doubt. Like you said, the results of last weekend kind of took the edge off, right? Or I guess, 2 weekends ago, it kind of took the edge off, right? With what happened in this game here in terms of nationally. But this still means a ton in the Mountain West. These are the only 2 teams with 1 loss in conference. So they're guaranteed to be another team with 2 losses. And guess what? As we sit right now, Monday, November 10th, there are 5 other teams right now in the Mountain West with 2 losses. Hawaii, New Mexico, first-year coach Jason Eck, UNLV, first-year coach Dan Mullen, Fresno State, first-year coach Matt Entz, and Utah State Aggies, first-year coach Bronco Mendenhall. Boy, oh boy, man. A lot of good coaches there in the Mountain West. This is also big, too. You got a couple, programs that are moving over to the Pac-12, right? So this is going to continue on this rivalry here between conference foes. It was not good. Max Cutforth was bad against Fresno State, and Matt Entz there. He had 106 yards, 2 interceptions. They struggled to move the football, 7 points on the year. It sounds like it's not season ending for Maddox Madsen, but he's not going to play. He's already ruled out. Cutforth is the starter. This was big because Boise State, notably, I think, did not take a backup quarterback in the transfer portal or even look to upgrade on Madsen. And I don't think they should have looked to upgrade on him, but the reality is like they didn't even bring in competition nor someone that they really trusted or liked to back him up. They chose to use those resources in other spots. And so here are the consequences. Your staff, Spencer Danielson and crew, were relying on Madsen to be good and a star for it. He was a preseason, all Mountain West player of the year, right? So he was like a guy for you, and he's hurt, and that really throws things sideways. And now you look to run the football more. You've got 3 running backs that you really like, hopefully a healthy Chris Marshall to help out your quarterback. But San Diego State, man, even against Hawaii, they still weren't bad against the rush, right? They are second, right? Or excuse me, they've only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns all season, right? That is first nationally They are 10th nationally in yards per game allowed. They're 8th nationally in yards per attempt, right? Incredible stuff, especially for the G5. And now I know you say, like, oh, it's competition. You got to adjust that for opponents. Okay, opponent adjusted defensive rating for San Diego State is 36th nationally. That is extremely high for opponent adjusted rating, right? That is second among G5 teams, only behind South Florida, and they're 35th. So just one spot ahead of them, right there, neck and neck as the best defense in the group of five. Not an easy spot for former walk-on Max Cutforth to come in there and get a win. So I don't know, man. I love it being at home for San Diego State. It's only at 2.5. I'm going to take San Diego State, the Aztecs. I think they score enough points. Obviously, the defense shuts it down. Sean Lewis comes out ready to play, and they get a win over Spencer Danielson, who a couple of second-year coaches in the Mountain West there again, right? Coaching matchup in the Mountain West. But give me the Aztecs there in a close one down in San Diego.
Yeah, as much as people want to look at Boise State and talk about like the level of talent that you're seeing on Boise State relative to other G5 schools, you're looking at San Diego State's roster and you're like, there's at least 3 or 4 NFL guys on this roster that you like. You love Chris Johnson, Chambliss, solid. Trey White, obviously, is a dog. He will be an NFL player as well. And one of the big things, though, of course, when you have to look at this game and you're talking about CD, like Boise State trying to run the football and alleviate, some of this action that this quarterback's going to have to be going through for Boise State. You lose your captain, right? San Diego State tears his ACL after or in the Wyoming game. Tano Latuli, that's brutal. He's a stud. And a leader, captain, all that stuff. That has an impact. All right. That has an impact. It definitely was measured last week for sure. I think we'll see even more so this week how much that will really have an impact on this defense, which has been so good for them all year. With that being said, though, I will lay it with San Diego State. I'll play it at -2.5. I will play the game. I will play I trust this defense against a quarterback that's very inexperienced and an offense that did not look good when he was at the helm. But granted, Jaden Denegal didn't look very good last week, 10 of 27 with like 2 picks. I still think that they are going to be able to run the football. And Denegal, I don't know what it was, man. He has looked good for a lot of this season. It hasn't been every game. It hasn't been super consistent, but I think he's going to do enough. I think they're going to get the win against Boise State behind the back of their defense. We're going to head over here to TCU going to BYU. This is a monster game. TCU, dude, what could their record be if they just I mean, I of course I want to say oh, what would their record be if they actually just won games? But there are some games like this year that they've just let go. Josh Hoover's been playing well, as he does. Andy Avalos, I think that experiment is going okay. I think in some games you wish for a little bit more. In Andy Avalos' second year as a defensive coordinator, but TCU is 5.5 point underdogs to this BYU team that just came off of a loss to Texas Tech. Wounded animal mode a little bit for BYU. Now they're in the chase, right, for this Big 12 championship. What do we got here, CD? I think this is an interesting matchup that we're covering here.
Without a doubt. I mean, BYU, obviously, of course, coming off the loss of College Game Day at Texas Tech in Lubbock against a damn good football team. It does not get easier down the stretch here. TCU, do not let them fool you. They are a dangerous football team. You talked about them just losing games, right? Just finding ways to lose games. The Arizona State one comes to mind for sure. And that was back when you had a healthy Sam Leavitt, right? Just brutal there. And you ran into a buzzsaw and a team that started to play really good football in Kansas State on the road in Manhattan. Yeah, and you got there too. Josh Hoover threw a couple interceptions. He has to take care of the football. You have to win the turnover battle against BYU. You cannot let BYU dictate this kind of style of game here. TCU get up on them early, use the Texas Tech approach, except go for the throat, go for the jugular, and actually hit it, right? TCU, I have no idea how they lost that game last week. Well, I do know. Shit just happens, man. Shit happens in the Big 12. Of course, you had the special teams touchdown. It is what it is. But for TCU to outgain a team by almost 200 yards at home and still lose, man. You cannot turn the football over like you've been doing. And for BYU, get back on track here, man. Put Bear Bachmeier in positions to succeed. I do not think this Texas. No, I know this TCU front is not the same front that Texas Tech had, right? You're also back at home in Provo, and you get a spot to let LJ Martin and Bear Bachmeier and that offensive line start to move things, and then you can take a step back, open things up for Roberts, and Kingston to kind of get you moving down the field and kind of create more of a balanced attack. I was also impressed with BYU's front defensively. They got some really good linebackers. We knew that. Kelly and the boys there, they fly around. For the Cougs there, they can get after Hoover, man. You get pressure on Hoover. They don't like to or really run the ball well. Does TCU? Last thing I'll say here too is Sonny Dykes, man. Not that he's on the hot seat, nothing like that, but boy oh boy, man. Let's rally the fucking troops, man. This is a big spot for you. Yes, you had the heartbreaking loss last week. It shot you down. It put you in a spot where you can't really compete for the Big 12 anymore. But you're sitting there at 6-3 with BYU, Houston, and Cincinnati down the stretch. Three teams that are three of the top four teams in the standings in the Big 12 right now. You cannot let the season fall away from you. You got to get after it here, man. I don't know how I feel. I don't feel great about this here. But I guess I like BYU here because I don't necessarily trust TCU to get it done on the road. I don't trust Hoover to take care of the football. And I think BYU will be opportunistic enough offensively to get things done to separate a little bit. So I like the Cougs here. At home is a massive factor, like I said. So give me the Cougs -5.5, but don't love it.
Yeah, a little bit of elevation. That doesn't necessarily help teams that want to throw the ball. You're telling me that Josh Hoover is going on the road against an opportunistic defense against a team that's going to want to limit possessions, run the ball. I think that BYU covers here. I don't know that necessarily it's going to be easy because, like we talked about, TCU is a punt return and a defensive stop away from being 8-1 right now and being like in that conversation. Like, wow, like okay, so it's between TCU and obviously TCU has some big games down the stretch here. On
This
the
would
road
be a de
against
facto
Houston.
play-in game. This would be a de facto elimination game.
It would be
in the Big
It
12.
would be. I will say though. They haven't necessarily been eliminated, I don't think. If I'm doing the math here right. It would be tough, but you're playing some teams that are ahead of you. You're playing against Houston. You're
Yes.
playing against Cincinnati. And you're playing against BYU. Those are three teams that are ahead of you that you would be adding a loss to their column and then also having the tiebreaker over them. So it gets really interesting. It is that Arizona State one ends up being the one that kind of bites you in the butt there because you would have added their third loss in conference and you'd be sitting here at 4-2 in conference with a real opportunity here. But I think that Josh Hoover goes in here and look, he could light up the scorecard, maybe. Like you said though, like if they do not win the turnover battle and they can't stop the run against BYU, which quite candidly, I think that they've done a pretty decent job of this year. I will say, I'd say last year and even the year before that, the Big 12 was kind of the conference of running backs. This year, not so much. You have some really good running backs in this conference. Don't get me wrong, right? But this is more the conference quarterbacks this year. So I'm not trying to take away from TCU's schedule because they've had some really good wins. They've done a real nice job stopping the run against some teams that try to run the football on them. If they're able to do that and stop the run and take care of the football, and look, you got a plethora of wide receivers. Now, BYU's secondary has done a real nice job this year. I think Jay Hill's a phenomenal defensive coordinator. I mean, just what an absolute home run hire that Kalani Sitake was so excited about. Really, no one knew who he was. Like when he hired him, and everyone's like, "Okay, he's like, no, I got the guy, guys. I got him. This is our guy." So if they're somehow able to kind of exploit this defense, which they can't, and they have the talent at receiver, they really do. And when Josh Hoover is dialed, like he's so dialed and so hard to stop because he does have pretty solid ball placement. But I like BYU here, man. I'm sorry. I don't know that Andy Avalos is going to be able to get pressure on Bear Bachmeier the way that he maybe wants to, because that offensive line's done a real nice job. And Bear Bachmeier has navigated pressure extremely well for a true freshman quarterback. Extremely well. I think BYU gets it done here. I don't feel good about it, though. Would love to see more chaos here in the Big 12. A TCU win is probably what I'm going to be rooting for in this game, just because nothing against BYU. I love BYU, love Kalani Sitake. Just I like seeing good games, and I like seeing stuff get crazy down the stretch. Kind of like last year. I mean, like last year's Big 12 was nuts at this point in the year. Nuts. And Arizona State was like, oh, they were like 7-point underdogs in back-to-back weeks and ended up winning those games against teams that were ahead of them and then catapulted themselves into the Big 12 championship game and then, had a chance to win a college football playoff game. So it's not over for TCU by any means, but it would be it'd be a wild stretch if they went 3-0 down here because I think it starts really tough here at BYU.
Yeah, I mean, listen, as a guy that holds a over 6.5 win total for TCU right now, I'm terrified. I won't lie, I am terrified, and I have been ever since, even though when they beat West Virginia, right? Ever since they played that fourth quarter against Baylor, and Baylor came back, I've been just like, oh my goodness, man, it's gonna be a sweat, and it shouldn't have been, but it's gonna be. This TCU team, man, it's been really hard to read all year because of the inconsistencies that have played out throughout the season, and that happens when you don't run the ball extremely well, when you don't have a defense that you necessarily trust. Here I was thinking this season, I'm like, give me Josh Hoover and give me Andy Avalos in year 2 with the system, and those two mainstays. It's been fine with Hoover, and I'm not saying, like, I think he's a pretty darn good quarterback. That's not what I'm saying at all. But it's just been a lot relied upon him. And when he's been on, they've been great. When he hasn't, they struggle a little bit here. And he's going to have to be on for them in Provo against BYU. But like you said, chaos is bound to happen in the Big 12, especially in November. Wouldn't shock me either way.
Iowa, after a heartbreaker in Kinnick, has to travel to LA to play USC. 6.5-point underdogs to the Trojans here. Definitely a dichotomy here when you're looking at play styles. Iowa going to be trying to run the football, playing good defense. USC, they play good defense sometimes, but they are one of the most effective passing offenses in the country for good reason, because they got some real nice weapons. They got an offensive line that's blocking well, and Jade Mayava, who, I have lifted up Jade Mayava so many times, and I still look at him as like a top 4, top 5 quarterback in the Big Ten. There have been some inconsistencies, though, that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. And like when he's not on, like it becomes really tough for USC to win football games. Granted, some of the injuries at running back have also played a part in that as well. King Miller's done a really nice job in place of the other injured backs there. I mean, this is still, I think, a good USC football team, and a USC football team that is still fighting for a lot, for sure. This USC football team is I think they still got a lot more wins left on their plate here, and it could start potentially this week. CD, what are you seeing here?
Yeah, they are alive and well in the college football playoff hunt. And I was given the same speech to Iowa that I probably I might have to give to USC just a week ago. Right. I thought they would really get it done in Oregon, and boy oh boy were we so close. Didn't realize Oregon was gonna have all those devastating injuries. Doesn't sound like they're necessarily season ending or concerned, but I don't necessarily know if they'll be back in time for next week at Oregon, right? So it could be or excuse me, at home against USC. So it's a huge spot, right? It's a huge spot for USC here. I don't know what Iowa has left in the tank after just a gutsy, like, leave it all on the field, last ditch effort to go out there and beat Oregon, and you don't get it done. You get your hearts ripped out right in front of you there by Dante Moore, last second field goal. Like, what is left in Iowa's tank? I think if Iowa won that game, would this be a massive game in the Big Ten, in the Big Ten standings, but also with college football playoff implications. I'm hoping USC. It sounds like the running back room is still banged up, right? King Miller also got hurt last week. He should be healthy. You've got Brian Jackson still there, a couple freshmen, Riley Wormley, who they're easing back in from injury. First game back last week against Northwestern. Harry Dalton, who's still learning the position of former high school quarterback. So, like, with what Iowa does defensively to you, how good their secondary is. We saw them make a really elite quarterback in Dante Moore, a very good dynamic offense in Iowa, missing some weapons, no doubt. We saw them look pretty pedestrian for about 58 minutes last week, right? So that's kind of what Iowa does for you. Can USC run the football? That's what I want to see here. Not only is it going to keep you in this game or keep you ahead of the chains, put you in positions to not let Iowa up the game and put yourself in positions where Maeva has made terrible decision after terrible decision before, right? You do not put him in a position to even make that decision, right? Can USC's defense get some stops? I don't know.
Yeah. You talked about, like, can Iowa get off the mat? All right. Let me tell you this. They absolutely can get off the mat. It has been gut check season for Iowa all year long. All right. The Iowa State game, your heart ripped out. All right. Just ripped out. Look at the Indiana game.
Yeah.
Indiana scores a touchdown with a minute 30 left in the game. Oregon, last second field goal. It's just been gut check season for Iowa. I don't think that this is necessarily make or break. They got a leader at quarterback there. They got a coaching staff that's just been together for so long, and they know exactly how to handle situations like this. And they also know how to bring their mucky Iowa-ness on the road, too. They're no stranger to that. Granted, USC playing at home, I think, is a big deal. They've done a very nice job playing really good offensive football at home all year long. Most of Mayava's struggles have come on the road. So that's a big deal. Having to go to Kinnick, I would be all over Iowa in this spot. However, well, actually, I'll be on Iowa again. But I will just feel less good about it because they got to go on the road. I think they're going to try to run the football. Obviously, that's like the dumbest. That's the most obvious thing anyone's ever said. All right. Iowa's going to try to run the football against USC. I think that they will be more physical than them. Granted, USC's been a much more physical football team this year, and they've been able to get in some of those games that are less ideal, less flashy, less explosive, and come out victorious, right? They've been able to do that at times. I just don't know that they're going to get it done this week. I think Gronowski is going to use his legs. I think he's going to be a problem for them. I think that this Iowa defense and Phil Parker, like, if you get a little bit in Mayava's head and you win the turnover battle, which by all means is very likely, I think Iowa 1 plus 6.5. I'll be picking that. I also think Iowa will win straight up here. Getting off the mat last week, they get it done.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something, man? That's classic Iowa. Just to do that, to rip your hearts out, and they get to rip the hearts out of USC this time. Tempo, man. Who's going to be able to play theirs? You look at Oregon last week against the side with defense. They ran the ball. Now, you talked about it too last week, and you're like, this Oregon rushing attack is unbelievable, man. The way that they get it done against everybody. And they
It's
ran
nuts.
for
And it doesn't matter
261
who's running
yards.
it either.
No, it's really nice. Will Stein, man. Will Stein. I got an Oregon friend, and he doesn't love Will Stein. And you know what? I think he's crazy. I think Will Stein's gonna be a damn good head football coach.
Absolutely spoiled.
Yeah. But Oregon only scored 18 points. Like, that is the fucking definition of what Iowa does to you, man. Like, you try and try and try, and up you look up and it's God, we're in a dogfight. I feel like we're gashing them right now, and we're in a dogfight. Oh man, can USC get some separation, and can they play with the tempo that they want to play in? Listen, I have a hard time laying the 6.5 with USC. I've been the defender, I feel like, of USC all season long, man. I'm like, this is USC. They turned a corner. This is a good football team, and I still believe that. So I'm going to take them at home. And I know 6.5 in an Iowa football game is a lot different than a 6.5 in just about everywhere else in college football. So that feels like so much to overcome. But I like the Trojans here. Just a little history here. Iowa's last trip to the Coliseum to play USC was 1976. USC won 55-0 in that one. Iowa is 3-7 all time versus USC. And 2-6 in regular season matchups. Both of those regular season matchups and those wins came on the road in LA, right? 1950, 1961. So a little bit of history there. Iowa trying to overcome, fun dynamics here. It's the Big Ten West versus the West of the Big Ten. Looking to get it done here if you're Iowa, but boy, oh boy, do I like the Trojans here, putting themselves up for a massive game just a week later over in Eugene.
Virginia is traveling to Duke. And look, I hate being the guy that's like, it doesn't feel right, because I was the guy that was pointing out Virginia and being like, hey, are we sure that's a great football team? Picked Wake Forest to upset them. Obviously, they get the upset, just not in the way that I wanted to happen, right? Chandler Morris going down. Never a good look to see that. Jake Dickert, hello? We're not here to talk about Jake Dickert. This is a massive game right here. Duke, obviously, both these teams coming off losses against teams that they were favored, by, more than a field goal against. Hello? We're here in November, all right? And Duke controls their own destiny to make the ACC championship, and they get Virginia at home, and Chandler Morris is banged up. Boy, this is getting a little bit crazy here in the ACC. This is getting nuts.
It is crazy. And two, I'm trying to look and map out the rest of, the ACC, which, by the way, is just a nightmare in itself, which is amazing, which is why we love college football. And the one unintended benefit of the 12-team playoff, which I was, against. But with the automatic conference championship bids, the last year, the Big 12 was so entertaining to watch that happen and unfold. And this year, the ACC seems like going to spoil us this season. So it's a lot of fun. Virginia has played 10 games already, right? So they are 2 games away. They played Duke, right, this week. They have a bye, and then they get an interim head coach at Virginia Tech at home. So, so much. Very, very, very doable there. And if you're Duke, you get Virginia and at North Carolina, and then Jake Dickert, man. Jake Dickert's going to be ready for that in Wake Forest, trying to spoil another season. It's hard, man. I think I have to go Duke here. I will say, we talked about Duke in Connecticut last weekend, and, UConn's a good football team. They have weapons offensively. They've got a great quarterback
The best
there.
Quarterback in the country.
Who was outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. Duke is 5-2, man. They're 5-2 or 5-4, and they are atop of the ACC standings. It's fucking nuts.
With losses to Tulane and UConn, and they control their own destiny to make the college football playoffs.
It's amazing, man. This is why we love college football. But for Duke, like, you still have Mensa, Nate Shepard running the football, right? Defensively, like, has to be better. And you expect it to, I think, at home, coming back and potentially against a backup quarterback. And I'll say this about Daniel Kalen. He was a guy I liked coming out of high school. I know, a lot of teams in the Midwest were vying for him. He's a Nebraska kid, ended up at Nebraska, transfers over here, to Virginia. And listen, like, he didn't get it done, but he wasn't terrible, right? On the ground, he did some nice things. He had a long run. Like, he didn't have any interceptions. Like, I think he can win this football game. You get him a week, get Tony Elliott a week to get him prepared and what they need to do to get things done. Jamori Taylor, maybe lean on him a little bit more. You get Terrell Harris going after the catch.
I think Kalen did enough to beat Wake Forest. Like, there were other Jake Diggerty aspects of the game, right? The turnovers, right? Chandler Morris obviously getting hurt. Also, just Wake Forest, like, they were not good, like, down to down, but they just, like, put together a couple drives, and that's literally all they needed, and Virginia not necessarily converting those same drives, right? And, like, multiple third down conversions in a row, it didn't happen enough for Virginia.
Well, and the fumbles.
I like Duke a lot. Yeah, I'm gonna lay it with Duke here. We'll pick this game at 6.5. I'll lay it. I don't know if Chandler Morris is going or he's not. To me, I don't think it matters that much. I wouldn't think Duke is a better football team than Virginia. I think both of them. I think Virginia defensively has shown some real bright spots, and defensively Duke, not the normal Manny Diaz defenses that you're used to. You're normally used to seeing a top 30, top 35 defense from Manny Diaz, depending on what team he's at. That's not what you're seeing this year. All right. You're seeing a lot of stuff specifically through the air that is just explosive play after explosive play after explosive play. Can Virginia take advantage of that? I think if Chandler Morris is in the lineup, I think he definitely could on the road. But I think Duke, I think they get off the mat here against UConn. I mean, like, that is not a team to be hanging your head up like about losing to, like on the road too. That was, we've already said more than we need to say about UConn in this video, but I'll still lay it with Duke here. Mensa is so good, man. He's so good. I know he had 2 picks this past week, but like, he really has done a pretty exceptional job taking care of the football through the air. Of course, 2 of the bigger games that he's lost, people look at some of the interceptions he threw and like want to point at that, but man, he's not the reason. He's not the reason that Duke has lost 4 games. You're crazy if you think that. He's a dog. So yeah, but I like Duke here. Sorry, I think that there's a better coach on that sideline. I think there's a quarterback advantage. Virginia defense, sure, can travel on the road, but I'm not sure that. I don't know what defense is out there. There's a couple of them out there that can like shut down potentially this offense, but they're humming through the air.
Listen, I might fade you here, and I obviously don't feel great about it. Not going to be laying anything down on the Who's here, but what Virginia does well, they don't turn the ball over. They win on third downs. They're good in the red zone, and of course Chandler Morris has been an X factor for them. Those are things that they did not have against Wake Forest, right? Third downs, they were 3 for 14. Of course, Chandler Morris was not there. They did not convert, in score, when they got to the plus side of the field. They actually did run the ball well. 5.4 yards per carry is pretty darn good. Some of that was inflated by the long run by the quarterback. But listen, I think they go into Durham, and Duke defensively, I know is very, very gettable, right? And I think Virginia, they get enough game plan done, and also too with Morris. I feel a lot better if Morris is playing in terms of them winning. So I think for now, I'll just take Virginia plus 6.5 because we know they love to play close games, and they do. I will take Duke to win, but if Morris plays, man, I would like to flip that to Virginia winning outright. Sounds like it's a head injury. Sounds like it's not crazy serious, but some of those can be tricky, and who knows what the protocol may be over there, for Virginia and UVA. But oh man, what a fun one! It's going to be a gross game. It is going to be a gross game, but we are there for that, man. I think this is awesome. This is what makes college football so fun, so good. A couple of academic elites dueling it out there on a Saturday in the fall.
Virginia, I will also say on the road has been. I mean, they've been susceptible just about every game this season, but they just like find a way to win, right? Like the home road split isn't all that important, but it is, I think, important to note that you lost NC State on the road. You did get the overtime win against Louisville on the road. That was a big deal, but you looked bad against North Carolina on the road as well. I thought the Cal win was pretty impressive, even though brutal bad beat for your Cal bettors in that game. That was tough. I just I watch this Virginia football team and I watch them just like find a way to win, and I'm like, there are better teams out there. Not to mention this is also the best quarterback that they've played all year. And when they've played good quarterbacks, they've played in close games. Right? You look at CJ Bailey, you lose that game. Louisville, they had to go to overtime to win that one. Washington State, that was when they finally started playing Zevi Ekos, and close ball game, won on a safety. North Carolina, that was just a messy game on the road there, but I think this is a really good opportunity for Duke to win this football game, to continue to put themselves in the driver's seat. Obviously, both these teams are in the driver's seat for the ACC championship. I just think Duke's a better football team, so I'll be fading you. And I actually feel pretty good about it. So we're going to head over to our best bets now. We got several of them for you. All right. We did have what I believe was a winning week from the pod last week. No, actually we were about 500, but time to keep cooking here. I got 7 plays. I know you were telling me you got 5 plays, so I'll get us started here. Give me South Florida minus 10.5 against Navy. I will continue to fade Navy if and whenever I can. So thank you very much. I'll take that one to the counter.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. In the American there, those games get ugly too. Like the scores get lopsided. So the backdoor cover, I don't even think is something I'm necessarily worried about for you there. I'm gonna go to the Big Ten here. Oregon minus 24.5. I know it's a lot to lay in a conference game against Minnesota. Minnesota's terrible on the road. Oregon comes back after Kinnick, right? Maybe they get some guys back. Maybe they don't. Don't think it matters. I think Dante Moore goes for a field day. I think they can protect up against a really good front that Minnesota actually has in the secondary at the cornerback position. They can get leaky, right? And we know Oregon's going to run the football. And defensively, they're going to stifle Minnesota as well. Oregon minus 24.5 in a blowout there in Eugene.
I'll give you a couple of Big Ten unders right here. I'll give you 2. I'll give you an ACC and a Big Ten under. Wake Forest, UNC under 39.5. And then we'll go to Northwestern Michigan under 41.5. And if you college football enjoyers, I really shouldn't have to explain myself when I'm talking about those. However, circumstances in which could lead to disaster. Wake Forest, North Carolina game, turnovers.
Terrifying.
That's pretty terrifying. All right. But I got to believe that still feels like a good number, good value. I mean, we're talking about like a 17-10 game, 21-7. I mean, like
13-11, weird scoring.
You want to outline that sucker to like under 28.5? Be my guest. All right. Be my guest. And then Northwestern Michigan at Wrigley Field. The wind is howling. Even there could be some nice weather this weekend, but the wind is howling. Northwestern getting a little bit frisky. I don't know. I think the under 41.5 is definitely in play.
Would love to see a statistic on baseball fields and the under in college football games being played in professional baseball field stadiums. It feels like they're always gross and ugly to watch. Now, the only downside there is you talked about turnovers, terrifying in both games there, but also like you get like just like I don't trust the turf there or the grass at Wrigley, especially after some snow they're getting this week. And even if it's nice on Saturday, who knows there? But we'll see. We'll see there. I love the plays though and the thoughts behind it. I'm gonna go to the MAC midweek. We previewed this game here. I like the Bobcats, man. Ohio at Western Michigan as road favorites? Question mark. It's a pick 'em essentially. Give me the Bobcats minus half a point in a pick 'em.
I'm fading you with a chance to middle. Give me Western Michigan plus 1.5. We already previewed that one, so no need to like get into the nitty gritty of that. But there's a chance to middle that sucker. Ohio winning by one, a last second field goal on action would be unreal for us both to cash. That would be crazy.
Pretty on brand there, no doubt.
I guess I'll move on. Yeah, I'll give me Fresno State minus 3.5 against Wyoming. What are we talking about here, dude? Did I mention that's at home? That's not minus 3.5 on the road against Wyoming. It's minus 3.5 at home. Granted, I don't know. Is this an overreaction? Like, I just feel like that this Fresno State team is more than like 1.5. Like I'm giving them 2 points for home field advantage. I'm assuming that they're better than a point better than Wyoming at least. I think that they're way better than that.
Yeah, I'm actually with you. I'm gonna lock that up with you. Fresno State. I think anytime you see Wyoming less than a touchdown dogs on the road, in against an upper half Mountain West team, yeah, give me the home team every single time there. Fresno State. I'm going to the Big 12 here. Arizona going to Nippert Stadium in Cincinnati. Give me Cincinnati minus 6.5. It is a lot. I love that it's under a touchdown. I know Arizona and Brett Brennan have been playing better and are one of the more underrated stories in all of college football, especially after how last year went with everything. Going back to Jed Fish and all the transport exodus, you bring in Brent Brennan. He's stitching together a rough season. He's brought the Dogs back. They've had or the Cats really for Arizona. They've had a solid season. I like Cincinnati. I love Cincinnati. I think they are legit one of the top 3 teams in the Big 12, and I think they proved that on Saturday at home.
We've been Cincinnati bettors all year, so why stop now? I'll roll with FIU plus 3 against Liberty at home. I'm not loving what I'm seeing from Liberty this year. I really like Willie Simmons. I like that it's at home. I think FIU is a little bit better than people think, and I think that's a team that can just sneak up on you big time. So give me FIU plus 3.
Yeah, listen, FIU cash for me last week. Willie Simmons, man, looking to get things done there in the queue. So why not? They're knocking on the door of a bowl game. 4-5 right now would be an awesome start in year 1 for the Panthers down there in Southern Florida. Last one for me on the slip is going to be Georgia minus 5.5. We previewed that game. Not going to go too much into that, but I think they make a statement in Athens against a talented Texas football team. Give me the Dogs.
All right. I mean, I picked them, but they won't be in my best bets. But I'm going to go to another game that we previewed. I said I feel pretty good about it. How good do I feel about Duke winning by more than 6 points? Give me Duke minus 6 against Virginia at home. Yes, absolutely. So, does Virginia just Virginia this game? And I don't know. Either Duke is blowing them out, or Virginia's just going to win straight up. I don't know. But I do like Duke minus 6 there. So we'll roll with that. We're heading over to the Dirty Dogs. If you haven't been with us before, the Dirty Dogs is 10-point underdogs. CD and I each draft two every single week. CD hit his last week to stay hot for the Dirty Dogs. Wisconsin plus 360 against Washington. Would have never put that on my Dirty Dogs. Can't believe you sniffed one out right there. That was huge. So you get the floor here for the first pick. What do you got?
Yeah, this is a gross game here in just about every single way you look at it. One dead man walking, another team with an interim coach going to the ACC. Give me Virginia Tech over Florida State. I know they're not very good, and I know, but listen, they're gonna run the football well here. They got, of course, Jones is still there. A couple running backs they like there. They get enough stops defensively. I just don't think Florida State's good enough football team to be over 10-point favorites here. Virginia Tech, and they've been competitive in the ACC ever since they've gotten, the coach obviously getting fired against Wake, Georgia Tech, Louisville, a couple of the top half teams in the ACC. Florida State is not a top half team in the ACC. They just got embarrassed. This could be the final nail in the coffin for Mike Norvell. Give me Virginia Tech plus 475.
I think that would be the nail. Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I'm going to go in the Big Ten, going back to my under pick, which is conducive to upsets happening. Give me Northwestern plus 390 over at Wrigley Field.
That's a lot of fun there. You talked about that a little bit, especially in a gross game. Yeah, don't see why not at all. Moving over to the Sun Belt here for my last one. Give me the Troy Trojans going up against Old Dominion. Plus 360 is the money line here. I mean, how many times have we seen Old Dominion, Ricky Ronnie, right? And they have just thrown away football games. And Troy would not be the worst team to steal a game from them at all. I think Troy's not terrible. Last time we saw them, they got embarrassed at home against Arkansas State. Sounds like Goose Crowder, Tucker Kilcrease will be splitting time almost there on Thursday night. Make sure you guys are watching in Thursday night there. Troy plus 360.
Yeah, that was one that I wanted. When we draft these off air, folks, so I thought CD was going to go Northwestern, so I was like, oh, he's not going to take Troy. They're my pick. Here we go. I'm going to take Northwestern because I think he's probably going to take Northwestern. And no, he got Troy on the turn, so that was brutal. So I relegate to my third option here. Give me West Virginia plus 375. They've been on our Dirty Dogs list a couple of times pretty recently. They got another matchup here in which I'm like, all right, they're probably deservingly, double-digit underdogs against an Arizona State team that's pretty good. But no Sam Levitt on the road. It'll be an uphill battle, but I think Scotty Fox has those boys. I mean, he didn't play great last week, but he's got them winning ball games right now. So a little bit of momentum. Got to win these last two games. You're probably not going to beat Texas Tech, right? But you're fighting for a bowl game still. You're still a chance for West Virginia. So give me the Frisky Mountaineers plus 375 on the road.
Yeah, listen, for you fans out there, we have been a couple nail in the coffins there on the Dirty Dogs for some coaches. I'm looking around here, Florida State, Michigan, Old Dominion, Arizona State, and there's one there. There's one there. That's if you're talking about head coaches on the hot seat. And I will say too, Sharon Moore in Michigan is not that I'm going to be monitoring that at all, and I think they still have a lot to play for, but that would be an interesting one too. Northwestern would certainly have some conversations going there in Ann Arbor if they lose out there at Wrigley. But a lot of fun doing these Dirty Dogs. Good exercise for us. Let us know in the comments too what you guys are seeing, if we're off base, if we're crazy here. But listen, we've been pretty sharp this year with the Dirty Dogs, so a lot of fun for us.
That's going to do it for our Week 12 preview. Thanks for checking us out. Thank you for the 900 subscribers. We appreciate all the support. Make sure you guys are sticking around. If you like the content, you made this far, you might as well like the video. Okay, made it this far. So we must have done something good. And then also consider subscribing as well. We much appreciate all of that and your support. We love college football. We can't wait to watch some great action this week, some midweek CUSA, some Sun Belt Thursday, and then obviously the great slate that we're going to have this Saturday. And the conference championships, races winding down here. College football playoffs around the corner. I mean, like, this is a great time of the year, CD. Anything for us on the way out?
No, you said it all. Appreciate you guys. Keep enjoying us. Keep enjoying you guys. We love hearing from you in the comments. Keep getting after each other. It's a lot of fun and appreciate you guys always.
And we'll see y'all in the next one.